Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Torah study of the weekly portion. And today we study the portion of Reeh. The name of the portion is after the first word of this week's portion. The Torah begins, and if you have the Chumash that I'm using on page 1198 or chapter 11, verse 26. Moses begins the teaching to the Jewish people, Re'ei anochi noten lifnechem hayom bracha u'klala. See, I'm giving to you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing is obeying, following God's way, and the curse is disobeying God. But the word I'm most interested in is the word see. Last week, we concentrated on the word hear. Last week, we read in the portion, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, God is our Lord, God is one. Just a minute. Somebody gets stuck. And today, this week, we study see. God is presenting you with the blessings and the opposite. What's so powerful about and so special about seeing? So I used the example I shared before many times. In New York, 25 years ago, they discovered that the water pipes are so corroded that there were worms growing up inside the pipes. So when people drank water, tap water, which they always encourage drinking tap water in New York, they would actually drink it with little microscopic size worms. Wow, now this is a major problem for us as Jews. As we will discover in this week's portion, God is restricting food for animals and fowl from many that are forbidden. In the water, anything that lives in water must have fins and scales. If it does not have fin and scales, it's not kosher. Worms that grow, bugs that grow in water are forbidden for us to consume. So a discussion ensued in in New York, whether they're allowed to use the water without strict filtering, because it's not just for drinking the issue was, but also for cooking or anytime they wash vegetables. Some of the water stayed with the food and it was consumed with the object, with the food. So of course the debate was the size of the worm. If for the naked eye you could not see the bugs, those worms were way smaller than a head of a pin. So you need a microscope to see it. What is this forbidden for us? Or anything that the eye cannot see naturally should be allowed to consume? After all, when the Torah told us not to consume any animals, it is speaking about creatures who are the size that the eye can watch, can see, not smaller than what the eye can see. Some rabbis said, well, you can still drink the water, it's a non-issue. Others said that it is forbidden because, after all, with a microscope, you can still see the animals, the bugs, and therefore it should be forbidden. What is very interesting is every rabbi who is respected and was expected to rule wrote down their answer, their understanding of Jewish law regarding the water. and they all begin with the following. They all somehow responded with the following: I thought it should be allowed. I thought it's a non-issue. I was under the impression that if it's smaller than can be, so to say, discovered by the eye, it should not be an issue. However, after looking under the microscope, seeing how those worms move around the water, it is impossible for me to say it's okay. In other words, those rabbis, even though they were leaning towards allowing it, after all, because it was smaller than can be seen in the naked eye, yet it was impossible for them to sign a document stating it's okay after they saw with their own eyes the bugs or the worms in the water. The vision is so powerful that it erases any preconceived notion and any other understanding that contradict the vision. In that way, vision is so powerful that no one can change my mind if I have seen something. In Judaism, we relate to God in three different channels. We have the first channel called emunah, faith, believe in God. My father told me, my mother explained to me, and therefore I believe in God and I am sure that He exists and He will reward and punish, etc. Belief is good until it comes to a test. When we face a test, about to lose a lot of money or about to be facing great challenges, in many occasions, people will lose their faith because it is a talent that exists within us but has boundaries. The next one is with what we call trust, or in the cognitive mind, it's called knowledge. If I have trust in God, because I've researched and came to conclusion that there must be a creator. I have researched and came to conclusion that God did not put me here for no reason, but He expects for me to perform in a certain way. This is called I have good understanding that God exists after research and philosophical discussion. This is very, very powerful. However, somebody can be smarter than I am, convincing me that the conclusion I came to are not necessarily correct. And people constantly change their mind. So knowledge of something, full knowledge after major thorough research, still does not guarantee the understanding and the connection with God. Vision, on the other hand, if I see God, if I see a miracle, and many people can tell you, I saw a miracle, there was nothing that will change them, and they will never be able to let go of God. It's just like if I stay outside and I hear the sound of a plane flying by, I am certain it was a plane that went by until somebody comes over to me and tells me there wasn't a plane, but rather was a car whose windows were rolling down and the car was parked and the sound came from the stereo system of the car. Now I can change my mind and accept that there was no plane that flew because someone explained to me that the sound came from a different source. However, if I looked up and I saw a plane flying by, no matter what the person will tell me, he can say to me, there was a car parked next to you and the sound that you heard came from the car next to you. It will not change and I will not give up on my understanding that there was a plane because I saw it. Vision is so powerful that no matter what common sense, what knowledge somebody can impart on me, it will not make me change my mind or change my understanding. So last week, when God related to the Jewish people, He's concentrating on Shema. Shema Israel appears in last week's portion twice. Shema means hear. It's about what you hear from your parents, from your teachers. This week, God begins with the word Reeh, see. In other words, God expects our relationship to be based on such a strong foundation that no matter what challenge and no matter what other smart people say, we have a vision, so to say, about God and God's commandments, and they will never change. In other words, the first time the Jewish people saw God, it was on the giving of the Torah on Mount Sinai. If anybody goes back to the story of the giving of the Torah, it says, V'chol ha'am, the entire people, ro'im et hakolot. They saw the sounds. Vision was there even for things that should be heard with our ears, meaning it was so powerful that there was no doubt that it can be any other way. We, as Jewish people, are raised with Shema. We hear from our teachers, from our parents. Our goal is to grow and mature to the point of vision, that our relationship to God is way, way stronger than just hearing but seeing. I just want to conclude this point of Re'eh, that the Jewish people and God are compared to a pair of doves. In Hebrew, there is a phrase of two lovers that they look like zug yonim, like a pair of doves. I don't know if in English, but I'm sure in English too, a symbol of love between two people is compared to doves. Anybody knows why? Anybody can guess why doves are used as symbol of love? Nobody raised their hand. So the answer is because this is Kabbalah, this is Zohar. I saw it today. Doves connect with each other with looking at each other. They stand opposite each other, facing each other, and looking at each other very, very strongly, intently for a long time, focusing on each other. In other words, the body part that connect and create love between doves is the eyes. And that's why the Jewish people are compared to a pair of doves in the book of Ecclesiastes and the book of Proverbs, because our relationship to God needs to upgrade from hearing, Shema Israel, to Re'eh, to seeing, where vision is the metaphor for the relationship, where there is no one to shake it, no one to doubt it, and it will be steadfast forever. This is the first point, the beginning of this week's portion. I want to move into another point later in this week's portion in the Torah, chapter 14, verse 1. I am going to concentrate on 2 points that are very important. Chapter 14 is the introduction to the law of kosher animals. We read in this week's portion about which animals are kosher, which are not. In the book that we have, it's on page 1217, I am reading chapter 14, verse 1. Moshe start the text with the following. Banim atem la'Hashem Elokechem. You are sons, children of God, you Lord, and therefore you may not gash yourselves or make any boldness between your eyes as a sign of mourning. Why? Because you God, for you are an internally holy people to God, you God, and God has chosen you to be a treasured people for him out of all the nations that are upon the earth. So what the law is, it is one of the 613 commandments that we're not allowed to mourn after someone's demise too much. And Rashi goes into details. We're not allowed, in those days, the Amorites, one of the largest nations in Israel, in the Holy Land, in the land of Canaan, they would scratch their faces and their hands as a sign of mourning, letting blood out. They also would cut their hair bald as a sign of mourning. It is forbidden by Jewish law, stated clearly in this week's portion, that as a sign of mourning, we must not mourn too much. And I repeat myself, we must not mourn too much. And that is played out that when we mourn after someone's passing, we are not allowed to scratch or scrape or cause any damage to our body, and we may not cut our hair bald, especially in the front part of the head, as was a sign of mourning in ancient times. Rashi explains that the reason we must not mourn too much is, as the rest of the verse states, we are children of God and we have God around to protect and be with us. Therefore, if we mourn too much after those who are very close to us, it is, so to say, a sign of denial of God. Because if you have God, after all, you know that life can continue and tomorrow can be a good day. This is Jewish law. Again, I can repeat it again because I know that for some people it's hard to accept, but mourning too much in Judaism is unacceptable, specifically scratching, causing all kinds of scratches, or cutting our skin and cutting the hair. And the reason is we are chosen by God as his children, and if we mourn too much, it sends a message that there is no God. When we mourn to a measure, in a measured way, we still show our faith in God, that God is the judge, he knows what he's doing, and there's going to be another day where we can enjoy life. This is the verse itself. The commentators asked, if so, how come one must mourn after losing a parent 12 months? If anybody is familiar with Jewish tradition, there are different levels of mournings based on the level of closeness to the person. And therefore, someone who lost a very close relative, for example, a spouse, a child, God forbid, brother or sister, they must mourn for 7 days, and many parts of the mourning continues for 30 days. But at the end of 30 days, all restrictive mourning conditions are alleviated. They are gone. When one mourns after the passing of a father or a mother, the mourning continues for 12 months. We sit for 7 days of mourning, refraining from doing business, socializing, enjoying life. But even after the 7 days, for the duration of the year, there is no traveling, there is no buying new homes. Even cutting one's hair as a haircut is done only when someone complains to the person that his hair is overgrown. Otherwise, it is forbidden. People who follow Jewish tradition will not shave for the entire 12 months, only when people complain to them that they don't look good. Also, we do not buy new clothes. We do not attend any special simcha. It so happened, it's a personal situation that my wife, Sarah, just lost her mother a little more than 3 months ago. And she has a wedding to attend, God willing, in a couple of weeks, in 3 weeks. She will not be able to attend if there is live music. And there is a whole way of buying new clothes for the wedding that she couldn't do in the ordinary way. It had to be purchased or given to someone else, and that person had to wear it a little bit, so it shouldn't be new, and only then she's able to use them. So the 12-month period is applied to anyone upon losing parents. All the rabbis are asking why we extend the mourning period for 12 months. After all, the Torah tells us that it's a sign of denying God. If there is a God, and he's the one who is the judge, and God restricts our mourning, how come he allows to extend the mourning period for parents more than 7 or 30 days, even to a period of 12 months? I have for you 3 different answers. I want to go over them very quick because we don't have time. I'll be happy to entertain any comments or questions later on. The first one, these are different rabbis. I heard all the answers in a lecture given by Rabbi Bernstein of blessed memory from London. I happened to come across one of his lectures maybe 20 years ago, and I loved it and I wrote it down. So I want to share with you the three answers he gives. Why the mourning over one's parents are much deeper and extend way, way longer and are seem to be an exception to the rule of not to over mourn. The first answer, he says, parents are irreplaceable. Everyone else is replaceable. One can lose a spouse. Of course, the spouse is very unique and special, and there is no one ever who will be the same, but they can remarry. One can lose a sibling, but the relationship are not as close, and therefore it is something they can move on. Parents, someone who lost a father and mother, it's totally irreplaceable. And therefore, to show that they are irreplaceable, we must mourn 12 months. Another answer is the mourning that extended to 12 months over one's parents is not due to the fact that we mourn the loss of the parents per se, but rather to mourn the fact that we distant ourselves another generation from the time of the giving of the Torah. The parents are my connection to the giving of the Torah to when God came down on Mount Sinai. When the parent is gone, I am distant. I have furthered myself one generation farther. And therefore, that mourning is not about the parent so much as it is about going farther away from the giving of the Torah. And that is a cause for a mourning of 12 months. And number three, the third answer is the reason God told us to mourn for 12 months after parents, it's not necessarily the loss of the parents, but it is out of the sheer, simple responsibility to honor one's father and mother. One of the Ten Commandments is, the number 5, I believe, is honor thy father and mother. When the parents are alive, we honor them by giving them a call, going, spending time with them, pleasing them, providing for them. What happened when they are gone? To show honor to one's father or mother when they are not alive, we do it through the mourning period. When we sit down and refrain from buying new clothes, and refrain from going to a party, and refrain from moving around and doing new plans and celebrating and cutting one's hair. By doing so, we express how much we care about our parents, and therefore it is out of sheer honor their father and mother mitzvah, and not because of the sadness of the loss. So again, to summarize that point before I move to another point, is the reason we mourn after parents for 12 months, even though the Torah prohibits us from over mourning, is for two reasons. One, parents are irreplaceable. Number two, it's a sign, it makes us distant one generation farther from the giving of the Torah, which is unique to parents. And number three, it is because we have a mitzvah to honor parents, which does not apply to siblings or relatives or a spouse, and therefore, out of the mitzvah of honor thy father and mother, the mourning period extends for 12 months just to show that we care and we fulfill the mitzvah of honoring one's father and mother. So this is the uh, the point about not to overindulge in mourning, not to make any signs or get too involved in mourning, because it is a denial of God. But there is one more point in this same verse that I want to share with you. And that is on verse 2, God says, the reason you should not mourn and should not scratch and should not have boldness in your head, for you are an inherently holy people to God, you God. And furthermore, God has chosen you to be a treasured, the word is treasured people for him, out of all the nations that are upon the earth. The word treasure in Hebrew is sgula. Sgula is treasured. What does it mean, treasured? Treasure is that's the point I want to make, and that the Jewish people are called in Hebrew Am Sgula, a treasured people. What does it mean, treasured? Treasure is a person comes across without intending to get it. It is a found treasure. It's not hidden, it's not saved, it's not something that a person sweat and work hard to achieve, but rather they came across it while digging for a foundation of the house or while breaking the wall, they found a treasure. Finding a treasure means that the return is instrumentable to the amount of effort. It is no comparison to the amount of effort, the return, the treasure that comes. There are many examples of treasures in Jewish tradition which are seemingly unrelated, but Judaism say this is the way it is. One of them is the Jewish people are called treasured people. And the reason is because as Am Sgula. And the reason is because there is no common sense that can explain the existence of the Jewish people. According to every study, every research, every measured way of measuring the humankind, the Jewish people shouldn't be around a long time and should have gotten lost many, many times. Yet, they are a treasured people, and therefore they defy the forces of nature and will exist forever. Some particular examples of the concept of treasure in the shortness of time that I have is a rabbi says, honor your wife so you will be rich. And the disciples explain, this is a Talmudic phrase. If you want to be rich, honor your wife because the wife is the treasured income. Meaning, one can say there is no relationship between what I do at home versus what I do at the office. At the office, I do work, I go paint homes, I go cure people, and at home, I have my wife and I together watching movies, eating dinner, going out to parties, out after the COVID, of course. So there is no connection between my home versus my business. Comes the rabbi says, you want to know a sgula, a good amulet, a good way to achieve success financially? Honor your wife. What's the relationship? There is no relationship, but that's the way God created the universe. Here are two more examples. The Jewish people in this week's portion are told that giving tzedakah is a sgula, a cause of great wealth, great richness. It appears in page 1218, verse 22, chapter 14, same chapter. Aser te'aser, tithes shall you give for all that comes out of your field. The word tithe in Hebrew is aser, ma'aser. Aser is also the word eser, number 10. The Talmud teaches us that if you give tzedakah, it is a amulet. It is a good luck to bring a great success 10 times as much as one gives. One can ask, what's the common sense? There is no common sense. If you give something away, how is it possible that you're going to be rich? And the answer is Jewish tradition tells us, not Jewish tradition, the Torah tells us it is a treasured relationship where when you give something to God or to a fellow human being, God will reciprocate 10 times as much. And the last one, the rabbis tell us that if one celebrate the end of Shabbat, the conclusion of Shabbat, to say thank you God for Shabbat, Melaveh Malka it's called, to say goodbye to Shabbat, he will be blessed with a very good week financially and health-wise. And one can ask, what's the relationship? And the answer is there is no relationship. It's a good luck. It's an amulet, or in Hebrew, as we call it, sgula, or the way it's translated is treasured. We are a treasure people to God, meaning what He's giving us is way, way more than what we deserve, and therefore our existence is way, way different than the way it should be dictated by the forces of nature. I just want to conclude and share with you that the word sgula, treasure, appears in this book of in the Chumash, in the 5 books of Moses, 3 times. One, before God gives us the Torah, God says, I chose you as my treasured people. The second is in this week's portion, as we just read, before God warning us about against eating non-kosher food, and God reminds us that we are treasured to God, therefore we have to refrain from defiling ourselves with non-kosher food. And the last one is the portion of Kitavot that we're going to reach in 3 weeks. Prior to entering the Holy Land, God, Moshe reminds the Jewish people that they are a treasured people, therefore they are going to inherit the Holy Land. In other words, the mitzvah of being chosen by God, marrying within the Jewish people, the mitzvah of eating kosher and following the code of Jewish law and the Torah, and the mitzvah of entering the Holy Land, all three major laws are connected with being treasured, and they are the one who provides us with the protections of a treasure of God. I would like to conclude by wishing everyone Shabbat Shalom. I hope to see you soon. And a reminder, God willing, we will have a Saturday night Havdalah and Rebbe video at 9 p.m.